Hello, and welcome to our Women's History Month Spotlight program, celebrating social innovators, industry experts, and trailblazers. Today, I'm excited to talk with a very special woman in agriculture who will share her experiences and insights as we reflect on the past and collaborate to inspire and empower the next generation. I'm Deborah Reed, Curator of Agriculture and the Environment at the Henry Ford, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Lori Isley, a fifth-generation farmer, owner of Sunrise Farms Incorporated, educator and curriculum designer, and president of the Michigan Soybean Committee. Lori, welcome and thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
I'm wondering, as a person that leads in soybean in the state of Michigan, when did you see your first soybean plant?
I'm not exactly sure when I saw my first soybean plant, but I can share with you one of my earliest experiences with Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum. I was a very young girl and lived on a farm just outside of Ann Arbor. We had cash crops as well as a large number of hogs, and we would bale a lot of hay in the summer and straw. And I remember delivering that hay and straw to Greenfield Village so they could use it for their carriage horses. And one of my fondest memories is really going along with my dad and delivering that hay and being able to ride up front on one of the carriages. And as a matter of fact, after that, while we were still in the process of doing that, some of those horses ended up retiring after their working lives as carriage horses and retiring to our farm, where they were certainly a welcome addition to the menagerie of animals we had there.
That's fantastic. A farm girl inspired to continue down the long rows, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's
of
correct.
the Greenfield Village. Thank you for sharing that. That starts us off on a fantastic journey of a very influential life and career in agriculture. Here at the Henry Ford, we apply a Model I innovation learning curriculum and framework to demonstrate the habits and the actions of innovators. And one of those habits is challenge the rules. So as an innovator, I wonder, when did you know that you were going to innovate in soybean fields as a female farmer? And then what about that may have challenged rules?
I think living on a farm just outside of an urban area gave me a lot of opportunities pretty early on to recognize that there were a lot of things that people didn't understand about agriculture, that there were a lot of opportunities there to share the story of agriculture. I was always really proud of living on a farm. And I don't think until I really got into it did I recognize the fact that there were not a lot of other women that were. But once that became more obvious, I just began to move forward, I guess, in that area. I'd had some experiences where I had been able to share the story of agriculture. I found that to be pretty energizing for me. So I began to look for opportunities that I could do that. I'd been very involved in 4-H, and some of my experiences there, particularly when we were at in Detroit at the state fair, was another, I guess, just a link in my journey to begin to say, how do we tell people about this incredible industry of agriculture, and how do we make sure that they understand what we do and why we do it? So a lot of it, I believe, in the breaking the rules is simply not being afraid to ask questions and not being afraid to interject your opinion when it's there. And so I continued to move forward, went to Michigan State University, decided I would get a degree in agriculture education. Was actually when I was hired in, two other female classmates, and I at that point in time were the only female agri-science teachers in the state, which was a little bit of a new experience for all the rest of them in the state. And then really just the opportunities that have come along since then to be more involved in agriculture I've just been very fortunate that in many cases, those doors have opened for me. So I've been able to move into that. And I think once you're in that position, then it's really your responsibility to show your abilities and your knowledge and your background and use that to move whatever industry you're in a forward direction.
Mhm. Well, and you're doing this at a time when many are leaving agriculture, so you challenge the flow, if
Mhm.
not the rules. And you are in very important and influential positions, especially with the Michigan Soybean Committee. As president of the Michigan Soybean Committee, how many women are in the Soybean Committee? And I'm wondering how you managed to accomplish this.
Um, I'm not exactly sure, but I have a pretty good knowledge because of my background in agri-science, and I was also pretty involved in FFA. So I got an early understanding of parliamentary procedure. And I think part of it is just my ability to run a meeting, but hopefully there are other characteristics that they saw, other leadership characteristics that they saw in me that helped me move into that position. It is a governor appointed board, and we actually handle all the checkoff funds that come from the farmers all over the state. So we do a lot of work in research and promotion, which is part of our partnership with the Henry Ford, and we're very excited about that, as well as in the area of marketing. So our goal is to take this little bit of money that comes from the farmers from every bushel of soybeans they sell. Then our job is to invest that into programs and activities that will bring more return back to the farmer. So we take it really seriously, and it is a big job, but it's also very exciting and invigorating, I guess, to see all the opportunities that are there. And I've certainly learned a lot at every step of that journey. And part of it is, don't ever assume that you already know everything there is to know. A lot of it is, do not be afraid to go into something saying, there is something here I'm going to learn.
Well, and being a fifth generation farmer, you've certainly had a lot of experience. You've had the training. You taught high school science for many years and continue to teach. So you're balancing so many, what seemed to me to be full-time jobs. And I'm wondering how, well, focusing on soybeans, how do you incorporate soybeans into your lessons? So a practical example of how you transfer that information from farm in the spirit of the Soybean Committee to your students and audiences.
Well, just to be clear, I farm, my husband and I and our son are also involved in the farm. So I'm not doing it single-handedly, because that would be extremely challenging to do that and be involved in the Soybean Committee and still in education as well. But a lot of the science that I taught was life science, so biology based, and there is really nothing better to teach life science or biology than the field of agriculture. And we used soybeans on everything from looking at stages of plant growth to studying the role of biotechnology in modern agriculture and how that is reflected through that, the work that they've done to develop varieties using biotechnology that can meet specific dietary needs, that can help with diseases, that can also help save the farmer money, and in fact, help the farmer farm more sustainably. So we've used a lot of those to tie agriculture both to social issues, as well as being able to use it to teach basic science concepts. Photosynthesis would be a perfect example, certainly ways that you can do that. And we also then developed lessons that we used at the elementary level. Most of the curriculum that I wrote was for the elementary level to help these students pretty early on begin to understand what an intricate part of their life agriculture was, because it is something that we tend to just take for granted. I think during the pandemic, we were much more aware of the fact that everything we want in the grocery store isn't always there. And so people became much more conscious of the fact that we need farmers and we need people that will work in that industry. And so it is important that we continue to share that message.
And that ties so directly to the Model I curriculum. One of the other aspects of that is stay curious. So even with everything you know about the industry, there's still this curiosity. Why are things the way they are? I'm wondering if you would like to share with the audience something that you'd like them to think about the next time they encounter a soybean in
Well, I
whatever
think,
form.
yeah, Henry Ford was really a pretty major innovator, particularly when it came to soybeans. And he was one of the first ones to recognize their use in an industrial way. And we've certainly grown even more on that. Soybeans, the soybean is really a very good protein, both for human food as well as a lot of our soybeans go into animals, particularly poultry and hogs are probably the two major areas. But the soybean is made up of both oil and meal. Those are the two major components of it. And the meal goes into primarily livestock or human food. But the oil has so many different uses. Currently, a lot of the oil is now going into biodiesel and renewable diesel, which is going to help to lessen our reliance on petroleum-based products. And certainly it's a product that we can grow more of every year. So it is renewable, and we can do that in a way that's good for the environment. And not only that, but we've made it into plastics. They make it into tires now. They put soybean oil in tires, which works even better than some of the other ones. I even have a pair of tennis shoes that have soybean oil as part of the soles. But it can also be used for insulation and for other types of plastics, biodegradable materials used in lots of different industries. So we're just very excited about that continued potential for soybean products and the ability to provide for some of the needs and maybe decrease our carbon footprint by using some of these alternative products instead of some of the products we've used in the past. So every time I go to another meeting and either hear about another market we're developing or it's another innovative use that somebody has come up with, I just get pretty excited about that. One of the areas that I didn't know much of anything about was aquaculture, and aquaculture is one of the fastest growing agricultural industries in the world because we people are eating more and more fish. And so looking at raising fish, farming fish, so to speak, in many of these different countries, that we're able then to talk to them about methods that they can use, technologies they can use in order to improve their ability to do that. And hopefully at the same time, help them to understand the benefits of using a United States or a Michigan soy-based product in order to do that. So we try and look for opportunities where there are industries and we can help them do even more with what they have and hopefully increase their standard of living.
Yeah. As a farm girl myself, we used to feed catfish. So when you see those fish rolling to get those pebbles, I wonder if there's soy in fish food. That's a stay curious question.
That is a stay curious question. There's lots of them. There quite a bit of research has been done by the United Soybean Board, which I'm also director on that one for about the past year. But they do a lot of research on developing different rations, which is a type of food for different types of different species of fish, because of course each fish is different. Each breed of fish is a little bit different in what they want to eat, but developing one that then can incorporate it. The really cool thing about using soybeans in aquaculture is the fact that it really replaces mostly fish meal. And fish meal usually comes from wild caught fish that weren't big enough yet. And so by doing that, we can help to increase the number of fish that perhaps some of the overfishing that might be happening in some of our lakes and oceans. And we can then replace that with something that is, again, can be grown each year and is renewable. So we're excited about the potential for that to also help with other environmental problems.
This has been inspirational, Lori. Thank you so much for sharing. And one last question, in the spirit of March as Women's History Month, you can be a role model for everyone, but I wonder if you could share some advice for girls or women who might be interested in agriculture as a career. What steps do you recommend they take?
I would certainly encourage any anyone to go into a career in agriculture. I think there's a misconception that you have to have been on a farm. And since farmers really only make up about 2% of the population, that needs to be more, but about 40% of all jobs can be related back to the food industry. So when you're looking for careers, certainly don't discount the opportunity to go into agriculture, because you can be, as you know, a scientist, you can be a geneticist, you can work with food packaging, you can look at the development of new industrial products or new food-based products. There's just such a range of different areas that you can go into and still be in agriculture. And I know lots of women that started not growing up on a farm, but have really found a niche in the agricultural industry, and it's rapidly changing. You know, we have a world to feed, and we're looking at having to feed 9 billion people, you know, in the next several years, by 2050. And so just that idea keeps us hungry, I guess, keeps us moving forward. So if you were a young woman looking at going into this area, I say certainly don't discount this, and don't underestimate your ability to be a contributor or to make a difference. Keep asking questions, keep being curious, as you said, and if somebody says, well, there's no women in this field, say, so I guess I'll be the first.
Thank you, Lori, for talking to me, for sharing the work you do to educate, inspire, and empower other women and girls in agriculture and beyond, and actually all of us at work today. Thank you to all who join us, who are tuning in to this THF conversation. You can learn more about Lori's work at the websites for US Soy and the Michigan Agriculture Council. You can check out the Michigan Soybean Committee webpage. We hope you're celebrating Women's History Month, and we invite you to visit us at the Henry Ford in Dearborn, Michigan, and the digital resources we have at thf.org. This will help you learn more about other leaders, innovators, inventors, and entrepreneurs who inspire us every day. Thank you so much.